My name is Chung Liang. I've been a member for 11 years here at UUSG, and I must be doing something right because this is the 4th time you've asked me up here. Amazing, amazing. So glad to be here and speaking with you. So the last time I was here, it was about a year ago, and if you recall, I was embarking on a brand new journey of college teaching at DePaul University. An opportunity that would not have been possible without the experience and the support from this church, of this community, of the families and your children that I had the privilege of teaching. So to begin this sermon, I just want to take a moment and to thank you all truly and deeply. I am so forever grateful for being part of this place. So today, I'm going to share with you a few stories from the past year as a teacher and some of the things that I've learned. There were some bumpy roads, a lot of figuring things out as I went along, and there were definitely some frantic panicking at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to plan the next day's lessons. But in between, there were rewarding moments. The way a student's eyes would light up as they hit a great idea. Seeing their sense of relief after a crazy finals week. And the rare days when all your students came in on time, prepared and ready to learn. Okay, that last one didn't happen very often, but it was a gift when it did. But one of the most shocking things that I realized as a teacher is that nobody checks in on you. There's no teacher police. You have to understand, I come from a corporate background. This is a big deal. We get managed and micromanaged on a daily basis, and nobody doesn't know what you're working on in a business. But here, in the education world, as I've discovered, I had the power to build entire course curriculums and didn't need any oversight, approvals, or official sign-offs. I could have been teaching interpretive dance for all they knew. Seriously. And I remember one day I sat down with my school director and I asked her this very question. How do you know I'm teaching what I'm supposed to teach? And she replied simply, "We trust you." Wow. This is scary, but it was a great answer. It was a great answer because I'm already very hard on myself, and I felt the weight of this responsibility, and I really wanted to do my best to earn this trust. But I caught myself fantasizing about all the crazy things that could happen, that could go wrong, right? Like, what if my students didn't like me? What if they didn't like the way I looked, the way I spoke, the way I dressed? Or maybe they would just roll their eyes at my lame assignments. And what about the teachers? What if they thought I didn't know what I was doing? Or maybe they didn't like the way that I managed my classrooms. Or maybe I just didn't even know the proper etiquette at a faculty meeting. So as I was working myself into this complete mess, until my therapist said something so simple, so powerful, that it shifted my entire outlook. Before I tell you what he said, I want to share with you a story that will help make the point. I heard about this from a live event from the podcast Hidden Brain. It's hosted by Shankar Vedantam, and I want to give him credit for introducing me to this story. And some of you may know this podcast. It's a brilliant show about human psychology and unconscious biases. I'm not paid to promote the show, but I just highly recommend it. If anything, listen to it because he has the most beautiful voice on public radio. So the story I want to tell you today is about an ancient Roman philosopher, Epictetus, who lived around the beginning of the millennium, 50 AD. He was a practitioner of Stoicism, which is a school of thought based on logic and reason to define ethics and to define a meaningful life. Ironically, he lives as a very poor slave among some of the wealthiest elites. In one hand, he's completely powerless, while living with luxury all around him. And it's said that he suffered terrible brutality at the hands of his master. As the story goes, one day his master, a particularly cruel one, is torturing his leg, is twisting it. And instead of crying out in pain or pleading for mercy, he turns to his master and says, "If you keep twisting my leg, it's going to break." And sure enough, it does break. And instead of crying or screaming, he calmly replies, "Didn't I tell you?" You see, he had a really sharp realization at that moment that there are some things that are in our control and things that are not. He couldn't stop the torture, but he could choose how to respond to it. The incident helped shape the core of Epictetus's philosophy, and the resulting disability became a constant reminder of his ideals. My lameness is an impediment of the leg, not of the mind, he would say. The only thing that we have control over are our thoughts and our actions. This material world and how others treat us, and even our own body, these things, they are not in our control. As Unitarians, I know we love living on the spectrum, gender, identity, love, politics, and I agree with that. Yet, this stark binary philosophy, I think, fits so well in our values. And paradoxically, I believe that this mode of thought freed me from so much of the suffering that I was going through. And that's exactly what my therapist said to me as I was ruminating over all the horrible things that could happen. He said, "You can't control what other people think, do, or say, so don't worry about it." And so just as Epictetus freed himself of suffering, I realized I had a world of possibilities open. This allowed me the freedom and creativity to teach on my own terms and to choose how I wanted to conduct my classrooms. With full control over my attitude and approach, I just needed to figure out what kind of teacher I wanted to be. So I used the best template that I can think of, our 7 UU principles, as taught from the kindergarten RE class point of view. I hope you'll indulge me today because I'm going to do one of my favorite activities. It's really great that there are a lot of young people here today. And it's a mnemonic activity called the 7-finger drawing. If you bear with me, I'm going to show you. And by the way, if you don't mind, you all can grab yourself a pen and join me in this activity and follow along. Okay, UU principle number 1. You draw a little face on your finger. Each person is unique and important. The first rule I set out at the beginning was to get to know all my students by name and to take the time and effort to really get to know them and their unique stories. I talked with them outside of class. I patiently listened to all the reasons why their assignments were late again. And most importantly, I designed projects that encouraged students to incorporate their own personalities into them. And here are an example from a project I did from Introduction to Industrial Design, one of my first classes that I ever taught. For this assignment, students were tasked to design an ergonomic handle for a kitchen knife. And what type of knife was completely up to them. As you can see, the results were amazing. They were absolutely wonderful, and they reflected the kind of foods that they liked to prepare or had a cultural reference to them. And it was such a joy to see personal expressions from students of all unique backgrounds and experiences themselves. UU principle number 2. We draw another little face, and you can make it a little different. I'm gonna make mine with the big smiley face. And you cross them together, and this one goes without saying, be kind. I found that this principle to be one of the most powerful ones when it comes to connecting with students. And it's been a while since I was a student myself, but I try to keep in mind that these are young adults who are stressing about schoolwork, about the future, and they're balancing their personal lives and maybe struggling with outside pressures I have nothing I'm aware of. So when I see poor performance from a student, I take a pause and I just refrain from judgment a little bit, and I keep this quote in mind. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about, so be kind. This last winter, I ran into a sophomore who had in a previous class, and she was looking rather distressed. And I've known her to be diligent and smart, so I could tell something was wrong. I just stopped her one day and I asked, "Are you okay?" And I think she really needed that because she suddenly broke down and started weeping. She was an international student, and her parents were living in the Middle East, and she was here in the States alone. They had sent her here just to go to school, and so she had placed this enormous pressure on herself to perform well, and she was stuck on this project. After some deep breaths, I encouraged her to drop the negative self-talk and told her that even though I wasn't teaching the class that she was struggling with, I just happened to be versed in the software she was struggling with. With just a few outside lessons together, some sessions, she managed to complete the design with outstanding results. It was so good that I featured it at the end of the year design showcase. And even though her parents couldn't be there to see it, I think seeing her work posted there really validated her efforts and encouraged her to keep working. UU principle number 3. Draw another little face guy here. And some arms. This one's one of my favorites. And when they come together, we are free to learn from each other and we respect our differences. I know I've been claiming that I've been teaching this year, but the truth is, what I've really been doing is I've been doing a lot of learning. And I couldn't have done this without all the people who created all the invaluable online resources, the numerous authors from the books I read, the coworkers, my past coworkers who shared their expertise, professionals who I borrowed special equipment from, and my colleagues who lent a listening ear when I needed advice. If you ask me who I learned the most, though, from, it was from my students. This is a picture from one of my classes called Haptics. For those who don't know, haptics is the science of utilizing sense of touch with technology. And I know what you're thinking, wow, that class sounds great. I didn't know you were an expert on haptics. Newsflash, I am not. More than any other class this year, I admitted to the students that we were going to figure this class out as we went along. We essentially collaborated together as a group to learn the science together. I didn't claim I was an expert. I didn't claim I knew all the answers. But this is one of the activities that we chose to work on together to talk about touch and technology. The students here were tasked to perform a series of touch patterns on the back of their partner. So the person standing behind is tapping their shoulder or creating some kind of human code to get their partner to move their arms. There was a lot of planning, trial and error, debugging, and lots of laughter. In the end, I managed to unwittingly get them to perform YMCA. That's what's awesome. So the code worked. Okay. Number 4. Oh, good. Number 4. Okay. UU principle number 4. There's a little flashlight you can draw on the back of your thumb. And I love this one. And the fingers are now pathways. We are free to search the many paths for truth. One of the most terrifying classes I was assigned to teach this year was the history of industrial design. Are you noticing a pattern of like terror and uncertainty? That was my year. It's a 300-level lecture class, and I was totally unqualified, and I did not even expect that I was going to be teaching this class. Fortunately, I did have a start. And for those who are pack rats in the audience, you're going to be vindicated by this story because I pulled my college notes from when I took this class 25 years ago. I have no idea why I even kept them or even how I miraculously found them. And I decided to use this as a template. It was a great start. I started listing out all the famous designers that I was taught to know and began noticing an unsettling pattern. And anybody see a trend here? Something was wrong, you know? It's just a little overly Caucasian, a lot of facial hair, and a lot of male-dominated presence. You know, this has been my understanding of industrial design history because that's what I was taught, that's what I was exposed to. But now I had the chance to change that. And I felt I had the responsibility to search for a more balanced truth in design history. So I made the deliberate effort to research and discover other design voices that were diverse and just as relevant to the design world. The truth is, design is global, and we need to do a better job showing that. Here are just a few alternative examples that I introduced to my class that I had never known from before. And I'm happy to talk all day about these people, but for now, I'll just mention the person in the middle, the audacious woman with her shirt off. Wonderful story. That is Charlotte Perriand, a French female designer who I recently learned about. She was a young interior designer in the 1930s, and she dreamed of working with one of the design legends, Le Corbusier. And some of you may have heard this name before. If not, he's considered one of the best-known designers, architects of the 20th century. When he interviewed her, he rudely replied, "I'm sorry, we don't embroider cushions around here." She nearly gave up her career. But just 1 month later, Le Corbusier attends a design event, a design show. And what he sees, he claims, as some of the most revolutionary work that he's ever encountered. Guess whose work it was? Charlotte Perriand's. He hires her on the spot. And she ends up working with him on some of the most revolutionary industrial design work that we know today. The problem is, she's still lost mostly in the design history because his name, unfairly, is credited for most of the work that she created. This is the Le Corbusier #4 chaise lounge chair. It's iconic in the world of industrial design, cutting edge in the mid-century. Today, you can even find it at the Art Institute in Chicago. And if you look it up, it is credited to Le Corbusier. But in my class, I teach it as Charlotte Perriand. And I give rightful credit. Thank you. Okay. #5, each person has a voice and a vote. So I'm going to complete my drawing with 2 more little guys here. And we raise it high as if we're voting with our voices. Did you know that there are college classes that meet from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.? Yeah, that's almost 6 hours. Do you know how much information I would have to cram in that time? And can you imagine sleep-deprived teenagers staying awake for that long? Okay, so if a student misses a class, I won't see them for 2 weeks, too. It's 1 day a week, 6 hours. When I got my schedule in fall and saw this, I thought, this has got to be a mistake. But sure enough, that was correct. I thought, Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna suspend everything I know about information retention and attention span and, just go with it. So, being unexperienced, I didn't want to challenge this without getting some data first. So I took a scientific approach to the issue. I would try it this way for 3 quarters, and I would evaluate the outcome and see how my students were going to perform. And in March, I concluded that my hypothesis was sound. I measured students' work quality, and I judged their stress levels, and I determined that a split class, meeting twice a week for half the amount of time, would be far more productive, less stressful, and more forgiving. In addition, I shared this proposal with my class, and I polled them with a vote. And the majority agreed that this class, the 6-hour one, was too long. And I made this case in front of the faculty as well, and they voted and agreed with me for a change. So for this fall, my design class is now changed officially to 2 days a week for half the time. I still need to evaluate the performance in this coming year to compare the results. However, I am glad that I was able to advocate for a positive change by using the power of democracy. There's my sleepy students. Number 6, work for a peaceful and fair world. This one's gonna be a fun, if you dare. Draw a little planet here. Oh, I'm gonna try to get South America here. There's the Arctic, England, Africa, okay, there's a little bit of Australia too. Okay, number 6, we work for a peaceful and fair world. For this story, I want to highlight research work from one of my colleagues, actually, Leanne Tran. She's an associate professor in game design. And I couldn't come up here without talking about toys and games. Right? That's just not gonna happen. My passion, as you all know, and you know my stance on the power of play as being core to the human experience. But did you know that through play, we can also address tough social issues in a way that opens up dialogue and provide a sense of levity in an otherwise serious matter? Take a look at some of the games that Leanne developed. The first one there is called Dwell, and Dwell teaches about situational poverty and how it affects choice, health, family, and communities. Tomo El Paso is a game that teaches unaccompanied minors about the detention process in the Mexican border immigration. Cops and Rubbers, I love the title of that one, is actually a role-playing game that addresses the dangers of the sex trade in Africa. And Poor Not Guilty is an interactive experience that highlights how fines for petty offenses impact those in low poverty or who are homeless. That's truly impactful work, and it shows that toys and games can be elevated to a higher purpose. And I was so inspired by this work that I'm currently developing a toy and game course this fall to challenge students to create similar social justice games that will be showcased at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair this November. If you happen to be around, I highly encourage you to check it out. And UU principle number 7, we take our little earth and we make a little lifeboat. And number 7, put our 2 hands in there. Care for Earth's lifeboat. For this last example, I want to show off a project completed by one of my senior students. And for the last quarter, I was assigned to teach the capstone class. And this class is meant to be a demonstration of the skills accumulated through a student's tenure at school. My goal was to challenge the senior with a complex problem and have them design a bold solution to that problem. And I can think of no bigger a design issue to tackle than that of the health of our planet. To keep it simple, I presented her with a question. How can industrial design improve the health of our planet? That was the premise. After 10 weeks of research, exploration, experimentation, she presented her airframe air purification system, designed specifically to integrate with our CTA elevated track lines. It diverts air pollution from the traffic below, and using the force of the wind from the passing trains would purify and release clean air back into the atmosphere. I think the brilliance of this concept is that even though it probably wouldn't make that much difference, it would be difficult to create, the larger impact is about generating social awareness. It's about what if we could do this? This is important. And because of its bold visual, I think its indirect effect would have a much larger role in making changes in air quality efforts than the product itself. So a really well done project from her, and that she was able to showcase at the end of the year. So to conclude, I want to go back to Epictetus and the dichotomy of control. It's helped me greatly, not just in my job, but in my personal life as well. From my close relationships to the way I interact with my family and my children, there's a beauty and familiarity to the philosophy that I'm sure you've all recognized in one form or another. It's there in the Serenity Prayer. God, give us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. It's there in Buddhist mantras. Life is suffering, overcome desire, eliminate suffering. It's at the heart of Hinduism through the practice of yoga, breathing, and meditation. And just like my lectures in class, I think I've gone and rambled on too far. I'm checking in on my kids, and I think I'm getting the wrap it up sign. As I look forward to the upcoming semester, I'll keep in mind all the UU lessons that have guided me to where I am today. I hope you've enjoyed my stories. I really did have an amazing year, and I'm so glad that I was able to share some of it with you today in some of my adventures. It's been an incredible journey of growth, and I continually find ways that this church has influenced me and helped guide my work. Thank you so very much. You can all go wash your hands now.
Visit us at uusg.org.